Story 1. The love of my life. He cheated on me and tried so hard to stay with me, but the trust was gone. I couldn't put myself through that. I miss him every day, but we've both moved on and have separate lives now. He always said that one day we'd end up back together, whether it was a matter of months or when we're 75 years old. So I guess only time will tell. Story 2. Both my brothers died young, my mom is elderly, and I have no kids or spouse. When my mom dies, I will kind of be alone. My brothers didn't even have kids. Coming to grips with that fact has been difficult. Story 3. The love that I'm feeling for someone who can't even reciprocate my feelings. It was so hard because I dearly love her, but seeing that she's happier with someone else, I have no choice but to let go of the love I had for her for the longest time. Story 4. My marriage after 24 years was struggling. She was unhappy, I was unhappy, and we couldn't find a solution. So I asked her to leave and helped her set up a new home, and we parted ways. We are both better for it, but it was tough. Story 5. My imaginary future. When I was married, I had imagined a future. I'm sure many people do, about how happy, involved, and traveled we would be. Divorce took away my dream. It took a while to get over my loss, but the worst was losing my imaginary future. Story 6. The hardest thing I have had to let go of was a relationship that meant a lot to me. I knew we were no longer doing well, but leaving it behind was very painful because there were still many beautiful moments we had shared. Although there was still affection, sometimes that is not enough, and when you let go, it feels like a part of you is being torn away. Story 7. A friend I looked at as a sister told me she was moving out of town, but nothing more, nothing less. I had to hear from a mutual friend that she had been gone for a while. I should have known when she stopped communicating altogether. Story 8. My family of origin. I've always loved them very much the best I can, and I believe they've always loved me very much the best they can. But so many bad things happened in our family, and we all survived them in different ways to varying degrees. We have a shared history, but have all grown into very different people who do not really know each other at all. I feel sad about it, but cannot be the only one who makes an effort anymore. Story 9. Letting go of my father when he passed away was something I never really prepared for. Even when you know someone is sick, it doesn't make it any easier. I held his hand in the hospital room, and I knew he was ready, but I wasn't. It's been years, and I'm still learning how to let go of the pain, even though I'll never let go of the memories. Story 10. The hardest thing I have ever had to let go of was my childhood cat. She was more than just a pet. She was my best friend. I got her when I was 5, and she was with me through everything. My first day of school, those awkward teenage years, every breakup, and even when I moved out for college. She had this way of sensing when I was upset. She would curl up next to me, purring, as if to tell me everything would be okay. As the years passed, I knew she was getting older, but I did not realize just how hard it would be to say goodbye. Story 11. My mom had an aneurysm that burst. I never really got the full details. When the doctor said we can keep her on life support or let her go because if she ever had a recovery, her quality of life would be severely diminished, it was easy to say, let her go. It was easy to make the choice as she was pretty clear where she stood on the situation when she was alive and well, but to get all the information and make a decision within a few hours was insanity. Story 12. OxyContin. Was prescribed it for a neck injury. Quit on my own. Pain doctor was a flag-waving enthusiast for its use. I eventually had it replaced by something with fewer side effects. That stuff was truly terrible. Story 13. Raised a child that I knew wasn't mine until he was about 5. The mother and I around each other got too crazy, so I went and got full custody of our oldest child and a few weeks later, moved away. I loved the youngest like my own, taught him his first words, how to walk. But his mother never let us be a true family, so I stepped away and moved a couple of states over. It's been 10 years now, and the brothers do see each other as often as they can, but it will never be the same as having a brother in the same house. The youngest doesn't even remember who I was to him. Story 14. My daughter, when she was in addiction, thankfully, she has now been 3 years clean, has a great job, and we just got back from a 10-day vacation together. I always supported her during her addiction with hygiene items and clothing, but never cash. But at some point, I had to be okay with the fact that I might bury her one day. Story 15. Friends who I've known for more than half my life never showed up in any form when I went through a serious health problem and only reappeared when they thought I was well again. I realized that I was the one always making an effort. This won't compare to when I eventually lose my puppy to old age, though. That will be much, much worse. Story 16. Honestly, weed. I went hard in college, but knew my career would require a security clearance, so quit cold turkey a couple of years before graduating. Going from every day after classes and work to nothing was pretty tough, especially when all of my friends and roommates still smoked regularly. The loss of sleep and general boredom was the worst. Zero regrets, and after a month or two I was past it, but it was rough during. Story 17. My father drank and used drugs throughout my upbringing, and that part was traumatizing and very stressful. But he also loved me, and I loved him. I cared so much for him, so the decision to save myself from his spiraling abuse was the hardest choice I've ever made. I cut contact with him completely, and so did the rest of the family. The thing I feared the most was that he would either drink himself to death or commit suicide, for which I would feel guilty. But the silver lining is that making such a hard decision and confronting my deepest fears so early in life was a deeply valuable lesson that I know many of my peers are yet to learn, even 10 years later. My father attempted suicide on several occasions, but he never succeeded. Before his last attempt, a friend of his contacted me to inform me of his plans. I called him for the first time in 5 years, and after that, he committed to sobriety. We still keep in touch and see each other occasionally. Story 18. Letting 2 foster kids leave our home, whom we had for a year, so they can be adopted and be with their sister, felt like we lost 2 children. It was a very sad feeling. Story 19. My mom had a stroke and survived, but she was never the same. My relationship with her completely changed, no matter how hard I tried to help her. The physical, mental, and emotional effects of the stroke remained to the point where it was debilitating. She was abusive, cruel, and it didn't matter what we did. I tried. I think she tried. She was just completely miserable. I spent 2 years trying to aid however I could. Help her, love her, talk to her, be the daughter I always was for her, while also coming to terms with the fact that the mom I knew was gone. I eventually started letting go of what I had always known as mom, and realized that this was our new life, and there was no going back. 3 suicide attempts later, culminating in her heart stopping in the ambulance and her never regaining consciousness after a week in the hospital, I let mom go for the last time. It was the worst thing I ever had to do, but letting her go freed her from the tethers to this life that she no longer wanted. I miss you, Mom. Story 20. My dog. It was the family's dog, but I took care of him mostly, and he was more attached to me. My aunt didn't want to pay the deposit. She told us it was $200 more a month to have the dog when it was just a one-time fee. So she made my cousin take him far and drop him off on the street. I went with him, still not understanding why we had to just drop him off. I was 11. This was about 28 years ago, and I still remember clearly how he ran after us. I was riding in the back of the pickup truck, and all I can think of is how he just disappeared out of my view as we turned the corner. Story 21. A really nice 2-carat diamond that I wanted to buy and have set in an engagement ring for my girlfriend. I didn't have even close to the jeweler's asking price, so after inspecting it with a loupe, I had to hand it back to him. Story 22. The idea that I was smart enough that, if I tried really hard, I could make it. The problem wasn't my intelligence. I'm chronically ill. I don't have enough try in me. I simply can't do everything I should be able to do. Story 23. I had a lifelong friend. Recently, in our late 40s, both of us are men, I had to go no contact. He was constantly cheating on his wife and was an alcoholic. She divorced him. He wasn't showing up for his visitation days with his kids. He wasn't paying child support. He was working and making his money, but he was just being a loser making excuses. His behavior disgusted me. One night, he asked to meet at a sports bar to watch a National Basketball Association playoff game. I said sure, the place had good food. He spent the whole night trying to pick up women and wanted me to be his wingman like the good old days. Yeah, no. I have been married almost 20 years and we have 3 kids. I'm not doing that. So he started calling me lame and a loser. I told him to grow up and leave me alone. He said being married and having kids were stupid and all that. I said I love my wife and kids and our life. Then he started calling me husband of the year in a mocking manner. No way. I got up and left the sports bar. I haven't talked to him since. I don't have time for this stupidity. He went around and tried talking bad about me to our mutual friends. They all agreed with me. I have zero respect for men who cheat on their wives and don't show up for their kids. Story 24. My mom was my guiding star and sacrificed so much for us as a young single parent. She was funny, artistic, philosophical, and charming. I miss her terribly since she died in February 2021. She died at 84, so it's not like she was taken from me early, but she was just a beautiful, supportive person, and I miss her every day. Story 25. I had the hardest time giving up my habit of drinking coffee in the morning. I decided to quit because I realized that it was affecting my well-being, and I decided to replace coffee with healthier drinks. Story 26. Believing my body, health, and a bit of my mental health with some earnest effort could return to anything like before a physically traumatic birth that included a cardiac event that triggered progressive fibromyalgia, among other issues. I'm thankful my son survived too, but even at 13 years old now, he has the functional capacity of maybe a 4-year-old, which in itself takes its toll. I wish I could be a better parent, but I'm so tired, hurt so much, and have tried so hard to get help. Story 27. From 1970 to 2002, I was in the military, active, and various reserve components. That was my entire adult life. When I retired, I lost half of my self-identity as being a soldier but had to let go. My skills and equipment I had mastered during the Cold War were as obsolete as my old self. Please don't thank me for my service. Story 28. A relationship of almost 9 years was the hardest thing I ever did to finally admit I had to let it go. But since then, I haven't looked back and, in a way, found a new peace I had never felt before. Story 29. My closest childhood friend. We don't see or speak often, but I still felt the bond. I reached out when my mother died. I wish I hadn't. Now I have 2 people to grieve. Story 30. When you have a child, you have so many dreams when they are newborns. Success at school, playing sports with friends, maybe them having their own family one day. As my child's diagnoses pile up, it's becoming more apparent he will never have any of these things. I feel like we are on an ice floe that is melting as more and more dreams die. Story 31. My mom, dad, and sister. I was in such a horrible, toxic family for over 30 years before I finally realized I didn't need to take their abuse anymore. But sometimes I just want my mom, you know? Not my mom, but a mom to comfort me or share good news with. That part is the worst. Story 32. Girlfriend of 14 years, with whom I share my almost teenage son, just decided one day she didn't love me anymore, 2 months ago. She wouldn't give me a reason, just packed her things and left. No closure, nothing. She only communicates through text if it has to do with our boy, and that's it. It was truly bizarre and still makes no sense to me because we had a wonderful relationship up to that point. She's still single as far as I know, so I'm pretty sure there wasn't someone else. Story 33. Video games. I have played games since I was 4. I got married at 25 and willingly reduced my playing time to Friday nights because marriage meant more to me. Kids came into the picture, and gaming is just not a thing for me anymore. I am 35 now. My kids are 8 and 6, and we have a PlayStation 3 and a Nintendo Switch. Sometimes I am too tired to play those, but I enjoy watching them play and learn. Story 34. I have a bit of a list. There isn't a worse one. They are all kind of tied. Myself, my great-grandmother and grandfather, my grandma, one of my best friends, twice. Pets, lots of those. My biological father, of course. That one wasn't too hard considering he left when I was probably 1, but it caused more long-term pain. I won't go into that, though. Story 35. That my adoptive parents will ever love me. I spent years wasting energy on the idea that one day I would be good enough for them. They are only a part of my life now because they are amazingly good to my son. However, I know that as soon as my brother, their biological child, has a kid, they will toss mine aside. Story 36. My big sister, who passed away almost 2 years ago, to be honest, I don't think I have actually let go of her yet. I'm not sure how to do that, to move on. I'm sort of frozen in time. Story 37. To let go of my 2-year-long relationship because I have to focus on career and studies. I learned that one should never hesitate to take steps which are beneficial for them. Of course, if I become successful, I'll marry her if she says yes. But until then, I will hold back and focus with discipline on my tasks. Story 38. My pets, my pets, my pets. Regardless of whether they passed the rainbow bridge, whether they went missing, whether they were given away in my absence, whether they had to be given up for adoption, or whether they were shared among owners for practical reasons. Story 39. The idea that I would have a partner and family. I was fed the expectations just like so many of us, and never considered that it just may not happen for me. Now I'm trying to make my peace with that somehow. Story 40. My pride and dignity. I went to prison for 4 years. I lost everything, job, family, and things. 20 years later, I clean tables and have a room to live in. I'm just waiting to die now. I have no future. It's all my own fault. I wish I would just have a heart attack and be done with this existence.